Luca Corvino was a name that echoed through the paddocks of Formula One. A prodigy on the track, he'd become a rising star in the world of racing. But when his career was derailed by a scandal that left his reputation in tatters, he disappeared from the limelight. His passion for speed, though, never died. And neither did his desire for victory. The F1 circuits were no longer in his future. The corporate suits, the sponsors, the pressure, it was all too much. But the thrill of driving, the rush of the engine roaring beneath him, was something Luca couldn't escape. So, he took his skills to a different kind of racing, on the open roads. No rules, no pit stops, just raw, unfiltered speed. It started small, underground street races in the dead of night, tucked away in the back alleys of the city. But soon, Luca's driving caught the attention of a much more dangerous crowd. The Rogue Drivers, a secretive network of illegal street racers who operated under the radar, organizing high-stakes events across Europe. The races were as thrilling as they were reckless, and Luca's F1 background made him an instant legend on the streets. One evening, Luca received an encrypted message on his phone. The subject line was simple: get the win. The message contained coordinates to a remote stretch of highway in the Swiss Alps, along with a brief note: the prize. A race like no other. The winner takes it all. It was a challenge Luca couldn't resist. He readied his car, a stripped-down, custom-built machine he'd named Veloce, a fusion of Formula One engineering and street racing power. It was sleek, aerodynamic, and capable of reaching insane speeds. Everything about it screamed performance. Everything about it was designed for victory. The night before the race, Luca stood at the starting line. A dozen other drivers lined up beside him, each with their own high-performance vehicle, from tuned-up Lamborghinis to fully kitted-out McLarens. But none of them had the pedigree that Luca did. He had raced on the world's most prestigious tracks. Now, he was about to race on the world's most dangerous roads. The race began with a deafening roar. The cars tore down the winding mountain roads, engines screaming as they hugged the treacherous turns. Luca's experience with F1 racing gave him an edge. His car was built for precision, every shift of the gears, every corner, handled with the instinct of someone who had driven at over 200 miles per hour in a controlled environment. But this was different. This was raw, unrelenting chaos. One mistake, and it would all end. The mountain roads were narrow, and with sheer cliffs on one side and a deadly drop on the other, the risk was higher than ever. Luca pushed the limits. He danced through hairpin turns, his heart beating in time with the pulse of the engine. The other drivers were fast, but they couldn't match his focus. He saw gaps where others saw obstacles, threading his car through them like a needle. As the race neared its final stretch, it came down to Luca and one other driver, a masked man in a matte black Ferrari. The finish line was in sight. The mountain road straightened out, and they were neck and neck. Luca's eyes flickered to the road ahead, his hands steady on the wheel, his mind calculating every fraction of a second. This was the moment. He could feel the weight of it, the chance to prove that no matter how far he'd fallen, his skill was untouchable. In the final seconds, Luca made his move. He shoved the accelerator down to its limit, launching past the Ferrari with a burst of speed that sent a thrill down his spine. The finish line came closer, closer, then, with a final, triumphant roar of the engine, Luca crossed it first. He'd won. But just as he began to slow down, a sudden voice crackled over the radio. Congratulations, Luca. You've earned the prize. The real one. The man in the Ferrari slowed, pulling alongside him. The mask came off, revealing none other than Marcus Rios, an F1 rival Luca had bested before. Marcus smirked. You were never going to leave the streets, were you? Marcus said. F1 doesn't want